Hi, we were in Naples for a week, and here is what we saw and what we did. Well, first of all, we had been spending 2 weeks with our kids in the countryside, and we drove them back to Fiumicino Airport, Rome, and let them fly back. From there, we ditched the car and got a train to Naples, Napoli. The train is a ferrovia, and Italian train system is quite nice. The train Ferrosa that we were in is quite modern and well air conditioned. The trip took about 1.5 hours and cost about €50 per person. So it's not much. When we came in the evening to Garibaldi station, which is the main station in Naples, we took a cab to our accommodation, which was an Airbnb room in a town, part of the town called Vomero. Well, it took about half an hour and cost about €40. And that is mainly because last time that we were in Naples, we got COVID in a subway metro. And I was a little bit traumatized by that, so I was afraid to go to subway, and it would have been €1.50 and took 10 minutes, the same distance. So live and learn. We use subway from now on and not taxis in Naples. And it didn't take so long, and it didn't cost so much because we were hassled, but because Naples is that kind of town that it's virtually impossible to drive smoothly with the car. So you have to actually, or the taxi did, it went around the city to the other side, and that's why it took time. But in a Naples town, in the old part of town, the streets are so narrow that they are not meant for cars. They are not built for cars. They are not even built for a carriage with the horse, but for walking. And that's why the cars just stand there, and there is always this road goes there and the next road goes that way. So you have to go to zigzag every time you try to go somewhere, and there are people walking everywhere in the same streets. So it's very hard to get by a car anywhere in Naples. But there is, like I said, there is a lower part of the town, and then there are upper part of the town, and then there is the coastline. So at least 3 very different areas that we have seen. When we were in Naples 2 years ago, we stayed in the lower part of the town, which is the historical part, the Neapolis new town. And it is quite interesting. We stayed in a 4-star hotel, which was just perfect for us, but the surroundings were quite a shock. So there were homeless people sleeping around our hotel and everywhere, and there were dead pigeons, and there were dead rats, and there were like these poison trees for rats, and there was a waste management issue. So if Naples is known for something, it's other than Pompeii, it's organized crime. So there has been quite many news with the longer period of time how organized crime takes care of waste management in Naples, and when they stopped, it stopped. So they can basically, or I guess that they can like blackmail the city and the police force and everything else by saying that we do not do waste management anymore. But there is something inherently wrong about it if I compare it to my society, which is of course flawed as it is, but it's not flawed in the same way. So there are garbage bags. Every evening there was a pile, like big piles of garbage bags in a crossroads. And then the cars come at night and collect them. And of course that leads to problem with the rats and the problem with the pigeons, because they both come in the evening to a set table to have their dinner, and it happens every night. So of course they learn to do that. So there were quite many rats, and that's one thing that I wouldn't want small children wandering around that city. But it was only the lower part of the town. Of course, the lower part of the town has its own, its own charm. So if you go there, you see very many kind of people. You see students, you see artists, you see, yes, drug users, you see people that started to party at the 60s and never stopped. People live there in the lower part of the town, like amidst of this all. And there are quite colorful characters, and if you go to a local bars, you meet interesting people, and you can hear talk about various things. And there are people from all over the world. It's just these native Naples. But like I said, I wouldn't travel to Naples with children. The smallest child that I could take with me is 15. My daughter is now 15, so I know what she can handle. But even though coming from this society, very neat, very organized, very structured, that we are living with is flaws, it might be too upsetting for her. But she could manage with the hygienic issues, and the smaller children don't. So they go and they touch everything, and if you think that there is garbage, and if you think that there are rats, you don't want your children touching it. You don't want them to sitting in the ground. You don't want them picking up anything. You want them to wash their hands before they touch their faces. And that you cannot learn or teach very small children to do, and it's not comfortable for them. And there isn't approximately anything for small children. So if you want to pick a place that is suitable for kids, this is not suitable for kids. There is nothing kid-friendly in Naples. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit strict, but I'm a mom and I'm a grandma and I'm an overly concerned one. So no kids to Naples. But for adults, it's an interesting experience. But this lower part of the town, it's interesting, and we went to a few restaurants there. There were same restaurants actually that we visited 2 years ago. There was this Taverna dell'Arte that is run by old men, and it was really good 2 years ago, and now they just upgraded their game. So I had one of my best meals in there with the whole trip to Italy. And then there is one Michelin mentioned restaurant that we were last time 2 years ago, and it was then very good. It was this kind of experimental. I remember that we picked a lot of small courses. We were vegetarians then, but it was very good. But now that we went there, it wasn't anymore. But I noticed when we went there that it was full of tourists. So that's maybe the explanation that they are not trying so hard anymore. And it was Locanda Vecchio Gesù, I remember the name. The food was good, but it was nothing like 2 years ago. Unfortunate, but what can you do? But what else was there in the Naples? I took some pictures and I thought that I'd show them to you. So there is this duality, like throughout the whole city. You can see the mess in a lower part of town, and then you can see the not so messy upper part of the town, which is like you would be anywhere, any European old town. It looks exactly the same, although the streets are much wider, because I think that it's maybe built like 200 years ago or something like that, so it's not so old as the Neapolis, the lower part of town. And the waste management issues are there also, but they are much better in control. So I did see a rat in a tree outside our room. Yeah, this is like coming from my head, excuse me. But there were these birds that started to sing every evening, like dee 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 dee. And then I thought that I have never seen those birds. And there was a tree outside our window, and I put my hands like this and tried to find the birds from the tree that sing so nicely, or loudly anyway. And I see a rat looking back at me from the house, and we were at the second floor. So it was quite high up the tree. But, well, it was picking the berries from the tree, so no blame to him, but no birds, but a rat. But of course, it's at the place where I live, there are very few rats, because it's so cold that they die during the winter, or most of them die. But in there, rats have the celebration throughout the year. But the upper part of the town, the warmer part, it was very nice. There I didn't see any hotels, but I think that there are a few. And the food was basically very good in every restaurant we went to, because it's a place for locals. So you don't see English menu, you don't meet people who speak English barely, and you don't find any services for tourists. But it was really nice place to be. So if I would pick a place to spend week, 2 weeks, month, I would pick that kind of place. Good food, very quiet. There is of course people in the streets, and that's one thing that we noticed, that, and it was very nice when, for example, we went to have a dinner about 8 o'clock. We eat quite early through Italian standards, and after that we just went and sit and had a drink in some of the places that were in the streets where only people walk and not drive. And there were people every night. They were either sitting in a cafes or bars, or they were just walking around, and there were teenagers like messing about, and it was very cozy, and it was very nice, and that led us to think about the level of happiness of people in there versus in where we live. And that's, like I said to you earlier, I read this book that I had to talk about you in detail in one of my videos. But the most important thing for people, for their happiness, is their contact to other people, are the family members, the friends, the people around you, that you have a connection, that you meet people, that you talk to people. That's crucial. And that's what we saw every night. There were ladies who pushed the strollers and tried to get their kids to sleep, and they were talking to each other, and there was old man in the next table, and just people who were walking by just popped in and talked to him for a while, and then carried on. But people meet every night. If you go outside, you meet somebody. And that's, of course, the point that I was very annoyed with myself, that I don't speak Italian, but very little, and made myself a promise again that I should learn Italian, because I want to spend more time with there and meet people and talk to them, even if I'm not living there permanently. And people come to talk to you. For example, when we were still with our kids, and I took the baby one evening when we have had our dinner, and I thought that everybody just wants to sit down for a while. When we were in the village, then I just took him and walked around, and it was like 2 minutes, and there was another grandma talking about, hey, are you a mother or are you a grandmother? Of course, she talked Italian, and I tried to answer, but we still managed to have a half an hour conversation with my poor Italian and his barely understandable English. So it was quite nice. And I'm not used to that. I'm not used to people coming to talk to me out of the blue and being interested in who I am and telling about their life. And of course, it was very nice to hear her say that, how can I be a grandmother's or nonna and looking so young. But I take every compliment that I can get. But back to Naples. It's getting too hot. Back to Naples. There was few interesting things. So there was a bride, but the posters for the bride were two grandmothers, which was endearing, I think, and it shouldn't annoy anyone if there are two old ladies kissing in a poster, but it was something that I have never seen before. And it was funny, and we didn't see the bride itself. It might have been in a lower part of town, I can imagine, but it was fun to see that kind of thing. But maybe somehow connected to that, we noticed something that wasn't there 2 years ago. There were quite many ladies that have shaved their heads. And some of them looked like they have other problems too, for example, with mental health. But others were young and well-dressed and just shaved their head. And it has been shaved quite a long time because they have tan in their scalp. And I can only assume, and I can think that this is something to do with the feminism and maybe with the gender roles and that kind of things. But it's quite extreme. But that's one thing that Italians are. They have opinions and they tell them, and they are quite extreme. They are not these kind of lay-low persons in a larger scale. Of course, there are many kind of people in Italy also, but this is something that we noticed. But I was just thinking what it would take for me to shave my head. I have been thinking about cutting my hair shorter, but to shave it actually, it would be something that is not the image that I see myself. So I would have been, or I should believe something very strongly to shave my hair. And but that was interesting to notice. It's extreme. Well, back to what we saw in Naples. We saw fashion photography. That's something that you can see wherever you are in Italy. So out of nowhere, there are maybe people, maybe trucks, maybe like these gray-haired photographers, and there are a few people that are very tall, very slim, and very chic. And then there are photographs, and you just wait when you have the next Vogue and you see the photographs all there. And that's just something that you bump into. And we moved around quite a lot because the area of Vomero has funiculares, and those are those trains that come from the mountain and get down. But they went to the 3 different directions. So we could go to the side of the beach, to the side of the lower part of town, or we could go to inland. And the lower part of the town, when you come down from Vomero, there is Via Toledo, and that's the place where most tourists are, and it's worth of seeing, but we didn't spend much time there because we want to spend time among the Italians and not among the tourists that are there. But of course there are shops, and there is Galleria Emanuele Primo. I made 2 years ago, I made the mistake of saying Galleria Umberto Uno, and the taxi driver was nice enough to say that it's Primo, not Uno. But it's similar kind of building that you can find in Milano, and there are shops and cafes and stuff inside. I can try to link in a picture here. But it was in renovation, so it wasn't with the formal glory, but we still went there. And its nice structure is very beautiful if you look at it. But I can try to find a picture from Naples and a picture from Milan. And a few days we went to to the seashore. 2 years ago when we were in Naples, it was the whole week. The temperature was 38 Celsius, which is hot, because then it's as hot as your body, and when you go to the sunshine, it's even hotter. So we didn't move about a lot. We had to know when we started where we can get to shelter next time. But this time it was just like 28, 29, so it was good temperature to walk around. So we took one of these funiculares to the seashore, and it was quite interesting. There is a much neater area in there, not like Naples, but it's not a beach. There are a few beaches in there, but otherwise there is not. So you have to go to different places, to Amalfi Coast, for example, if you want to be on a beach and swim. Of course, there were people like sunbathing in the rocks, and they went to swim there, but it didn't look very comfortable. And it certainly is not a beach for children. So there were only adults and local kids. And there is a marina for wealthy and famous. If you are one of those, you might find that. But overall, the coastline was let's say, somehow disappointment. And we were thinking when we walked, there was like 2 or 3 kilometers walk through the coastline, that why is that? Why Naples hasn't built a coast, this kind of beach for itself, and the cafes and the seashore restaurants and that kind of things. But there wasn't. There was few places we went just for a drink in this kind of, like, you know, the line of restaurants and bars that are in the seashore, but it wasn't very good. And my husband said first that, we have to go and have a dinner there one night. But after that drink, he was agreeing with me that we are not eating dinner in here. These are not meant for people. These are meant for tourists. And I don't know, but the beach is quite a long drive from Naples. But if you want to go to beach and see Naples, then go to the beach and then just visit Naples. If you love beaches, I do not sunbathe. I do not swim in the ocean, or very rarely. When I was younger, I did. But all the news with the people coming with the boats and drowning to Mediterranean, I lost my will to swim in the ocean. It's just something that comes to my mind every once in a while, and I don't like that. And then, of course, it's Naples, it's Neapolis, new town. There is Pompeii and Herculaneum. Pompeii is the city that was covered in ash when Vesuvius, the volcano, erupted years and years and years ago. And if you want to go there, there are plenty of trips there. Just take an umbrella so you can shield yourself, because it's an excavation site. So there is no shelter, no shadow anywhere. So it's a hot place. The lady that rented the room for us said that don't go there because it's over 30, but we are not that old. She was a funny personality, actually. She came there and she was very enthusiastic and talked. And when I asked something about her apartment or for the town or something, she couldn't answer. So I assumed that she could only talk but not listen. But she referred us to as an older persons and recommended that we don't go to Pompeii and we don't go to Vesuvius. But we didn't go. I knew in advance that when we were there 2 years ago, and we thought that should we go to visit Pompeii, I had the feeling that so many people died there when the volcano erupted that I don't want to go there. I feel that it's not a place that I should be. I have this kind of feelings in some places. We went to a museum in Naples that have very many objects from that town and drawings and explanations what happened and how. And we went there, and by the way, there wasn't air conditioning in that museum, so it was 38 outside and inside, and it was quite sweaty experience the 2 years ago when we were there. But we managed. But that was the information that was sufficient for me. I don't want to go to practically burial site to look at the forms of people's corpses. I think that that's something that may upset me too much. And that's something that I think that you shouldn't expose your children to if you decide to go there, even with the 15-year-olds. But that's, of course, something that people come to Naples for. But the saying, see Naples and die, I don't know where that comes from. I could maybe Google it, but if you know, tell me. But one thing that is noteworthy of Naples is that it's very economical place to travel. And for that, maybe there are so many students and artists and these kind of alternative personalities staying there. And of course I like that. When I go outside and I have a pizza for €6, that is actually very good. I enjoy that. And you can be a longer period of time. And of course we went to grocery store because we didn't have any breakfast. So we bought our own breakfast, which was actually, it was pretty simple. So I ate orange every morning and then I ate bresaola. And bresaola is it's not a ham, but it is like ham. It's very salty meat, raw air-dried meat that you can pick from the grocery stores. We picked that up because we had a refrigerator in our room. But that was enough. After that, a few of these very, very, very tiny slices of that. And then we went to cafeteria, and then I had my coffee and croissant or brioche. But even the prices in the grocery stores were very low, so you can eat with the budget every day, and you can live with the budget every day. I did buy one dress from there that was quite expensive. It was almost €200, but it's worth it, and it will be traveling with me for the next few years. And then I went to see a handbag that I saw in the window, and then when the store was open, then I went to see it. I wasn't planning on buying a handbag, but it was very beautiful. And I looked at the price tag, and the sales lady saw me. It was €250. I know that it would have been worth the €250, but it was well made. But I was stingy as I am. So the lady looked at me and said, "It's your lucky day. It's minus 30%. And I was like, okay, yes, now we are talking. And then I bought it from €160, and I was very happy. It's worth that money any day. But things don't cost that much. Cup of coffee, this I take latte macchiato, and it was €1.80. So you can eat outside, you can buy your own food, but it doesn't cost much. Of course, you have to see if you go to a tourist area, then it might be €3, but why should you when it's better with the locals? But do I recommend you to go to Naples? Yes. You learn and you see. For example, if you live in polished area that is very organized, everybody is very decent and middle class, then it's educational to go to Naples and see how people might live and be still very happy. And of course there is the historical side and the way that a town works and the joy of good food and good wine. Yes, I will recommend going to Naples, but don't take your kids with you. And don't buy drugs. I know that that's something that this kind of environment lowers the bar to use these illegal substances. And that's very unfortunate. And I think that that's maybe why some people went to Naples and stayed in Naples and never came back. And that's horrible thing for me to think about. But of course, it depends on how their lives was before they went to Naples. But I don't encourage that. I more tell you in advance that do not do that. Live your normal life, but see how other people live and learn. And then you may appreciate the life you have more. But Naples is not this kind of a poor and scrappy place. It looks like it, but it's not. People live there happy with their lives. I hope to see you soon. Goodbye. Arrivederci.